It's Cardboard Time, episode number 79, and I'm your host, Arwen Kathke. On today's episode, we have reviews of Inheritors and La Isla. Now, there has been a lot going on in my life. It is great to be back in front of the microphone. I will be doing a series of episodes to kind of catch up. I do kind of want to get to 100 by a specific time, but I will let you know why that is later. Not on this episode, but later. We will see if I can actually get kind of back on track. I know I've been away for a long time, and let me tell you about where I've been. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about was going to Las Vegas. And Allie and I went to Las Vegas. We took about a week. It was a little bit less than a week, but we found a great deal. We stayed at the Paris Hotel. We did some incredible things. We went to the Pinball Hall of Fame Museum. We just kind of toured around all the different casinos and wandered around and looked in them and looked at the shops that we couldn't afford because they're crazy. Anybody that's been to Las Vegas and has been in like the Bellagio and the Venetian kind of know, like, there's all these crazy stores. People are standing there in black suits and ties and, you know, these red velvet ropes across the store. Like, we want to keep the riffraff out, me being the riffraff. And basically, it was kind of crazy. I don't know exactly who has that kind of money to spend in those stores, but it was very interesting kind of looking at them. The casinos were absolutely beautiful. We went to Omega Mart as well, and that was a fantastic time. If you are ever out in Las Vegas, I do really recommend going to Omega Mart, checking that out. I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to try to explain it. It's just something that has to be seen to be believed. And it was a fantastic time. There was also a lot of great food. We ate so incredibly well while we were out there. A couple of standouts were the Gordon Ramsay's Hell's Kitchen, outstanding beef Wellington, and the sticky toffee pudding was amazing as well. And then the Bacchanal buffet at Caesars was a delight. We were looking forward to that, and it did not disappoint. The selection is incredible, as well as the quality of the food. I'm really glad that we went there, and I think if I go back, I definitely want to check that out again. But overall, I was really happy with the trip to Vegas. I had a really good time. I know Allie had a really good time. And we may go back in the future. It was kind of on my list of things that I had always wanted to do. We got to see a Cirque show, love the Beatles show, and do all sorts of fun things that I had just wanted to do. So we did them. And it was kind of nice to have a break from just traveling for conventions. But speaking of traveling for conventions, I was at the Cincinnati Tabletop Collaborative event. This was a collaboration between the University of Cincinnati, SHE, and the Board Again Games podcast with our friend Chris. We went with Olivia and Justin. So basically, I got back from Vegas at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, after picking up Olivia from Jamie Dagger's house the night before, we went down to Cincinnati and did a bunch of play testing. We saw some great keynotes. There were two great keynotes by Carla Kopp and Sen-Foon Lim, which were both incredibly informative and great keynotes. They are available online if you search for Cincinnati Tabletop Collaborative on YouTube. I think that they'll come up both. Both did an amazing job. I also did a Q&A that I taped myself that wasn't filmed as part of the collaborative event. But I did film that, and if I do get permission, I will try to upload that at some point this week or next week if I'm able to. The Q&A was just kind of a brief history of the podcast and then, opened up the floor for people to ask questions and kind of get some answers that they had been looking for and some really great discussions. It was amazing to have that interaction with everybody and really have those great discussions and those great chats, including wonderful chats afterwards too that kind of spilled out back into the event. So definitely valued that. It was a little bit too short for my taste, and I think a lot of it was just a whirlwind of where I had been, and kind of getting back from Vegas and getting back into the swing of things was a little bit tough, and it just kind of felt like overload in a way. But yeah, some really fun designs that we're playtesting there as well, and a kind of reminder to get to your local playtesting events. These are the places that you are going to play tomorrow's games. I know I've said it before, I'm going to reiterate it. It's so important to get to those playtesting events and help the designers out when it comes to getting these things play tested, because it gets it to your shelves faster. So we also went to Jungle Gyms. For those familiar with the Cincinnati area, Jungle Gyms is amazing. It's an international market, and I bought way too much cheese. We're still kind of going through that now, and just snacking away on it and trying to intersperse it so that we don't go too crazy too fast. And then the third thing, the thing that I had posted on social media, and one reason that I did want to take a break, was the slate of anti-trans legislation has really been weighing on me. It's been kind of taking a little bit of a mental toll. It's really been a tough year, and I fear it's only going to get worse. So please do check in on your trans friends. They really do need it right now. We're going through a lot, so it is good to be back. It's almost therapeutic for me in a way to just talk about board games and get things off of my mind. But that is always in the back of my mind as well. So it's hard to avoid it. So let's talk about happier things here. Let's talk about the Shelf of Shame. I don't know if that's a happier subject or not, but we're going to talk about it anyways. It is at 152. That is up by 1, and there's a lot of updates to get through and talk about. If we take a look at what came in from crowdfunding, we had... in total, we had 11 come in. From crowdfunding, Avant-Card was the first one that I wanted to talk about. I will probably be doing a review on that soon. I absolutely love the production value of this. It's what got me to back the game in the first place, and I was not disappointed. The box design on this was one of the most clever, ingenious boxes that I think I've seen. And really makes for a very quick setup. You can get into the game really easily, and had a good time playing that as well. We'll talk about that in a minute. Fractured Sky came in as well. Converge, there were 3 games in that series: Sparks of Hope, Engines of Progress, and Catalysts of Change. Basically it's just a series of 3 decks, and you can interchange them and mix them however you want. So those came in. Those were all Button Shy games. Pocket Paragons, 2 versions of that. The Acquisitions Incorporated set, as well as the Space Lion set, both came in. And the actual Space Lion game, Divide and Conquer, came in as well from crowdfunding. So a lot coming in that I had previously paid for, and now I was receiving. In addition to that, I did purchase a couple of games, notably Wormspan and Apiary. Looking forward to both of those. And continuing on the Stonemaier train, we have Expeditions. That was a review copy passed along to me by Jamie Daggers. So I'm excited to play all 3 of those. I've really been looking forward to those. I mean, Apiary, who could go wrong with Space Bees? And been hearing kind of mixed on Wormspan. Some people absolutely love it. Some people say that it goes on too long. So we'll see. I guess it's kind of more of a gamer's quote-unquote version of Wingspan. And I just want to play it. I just want to form my own opinions and see what I think of it. So That was all the incoming stuff, the things that I did get to the table. First of all, Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Scrawlers. I will be talking about that next week as long as everything goes according to plan. Inheritors as well, that I will be talking about today. I got that played with Olivia. The Converge series of games, I got one of those played with Olivia as well. I really didn't care for it as much as I thought I would. I thought it was okay. I didn't really enjoy it all that much, and I don't want to go into too much detail. I'll probably play another couple of rounds of it, and if it doesn't stick for me after that, I think that will probably be on the sale pile. La Isla is another game that I will talk about today that we got played with me and Olivia. Maple Valley, Olivia, Jamie, and I got to the table. And then talking about some other games I got played. Potato Man is a kind of a trick-taking game with a bunch of weird twists and a very funny theme. I'll probably talk about this one at some point. It's kind of on the back burner for me. But a fun little trick-taking game. If you haven't heard of it, at least take a look at it. See if you like the theme on it, and just kind of go through a rules overview. I think if you enjoy trick takers, you'll probably enjoy this one. But this kind of back burner for me as far as getting reviews out for that. Avant-Garde is kind of at the forefront, something that I will be talking about in the next couple of episodes. Conquest Princess Fashion is Power. I did get a review copy of that from Seppi Yoon, and this I will be talking about next week. I did get this to the table with my friend Jordan, and interested to talk about that next week. Speaking of games that we got out, the Shipwreck Arcana also came to the table. It was very, very fascinating. That was a game that I will probably pick up for myself. I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I was, but it was quite good. And Logic and Lore is a game that probably not next episode, but the episode after I will be talking about, and we will probably be getting back into our interview series when I do. So just a little teaser there. But I do have two reviews for today that I want to share with you. The first one being Inheritors. Now, this plays from 2 to 4 players in 30 to 45 minutes, designed by Jeffrey CCH and Kenneth YWN. The art is by Roxy Dye, and the publisher is North Star Games. In the dark of the night, whispers spread throughout the court. The king is dead. Inheritors is a 2 to 4 player open drafting hand management card game. As one of the king's inheritors, you will seek influence among the 5 clans, spy on your competitors, and tip the courts in your favor to win your rightful place on the throne. Build influence in the 5 realms, gain the support of the clan leaders, each with unique abilities, use advocates to outthink your opponents, race to claim honors, journey on quests to prove yourself to the realms. Inheritors provides a big game experience in a small box that you can take with you anywhere. Let the games begin. So this was a review copy for me. Thanks to North Star Games for providing it. At its core, this is really a ladder kind of tableau building game. So you're playing each of 5 suits in a separate pile, and you're trying to build those up as high as possible. You're going to start with 1s and then work your way up to 2s, 3s, 4s, etc. The score on the top card of each pile is going to score you the majority of your points. And then you're going to have these little objectives called honors. And then you have quests that you can complete for some additional points as well. And some of the clans that you might get also give you some points potentially. So there are more ones in the deck than sixes. So if you start off with ones, you have 4 of those, and then you start decreasing in numbers up to your sixes, which you only have 1 of. So it's much easier to get a hold of a 1 for your pile than it is a 6. There's 3 discard piles. Each time you discard, it goes onto one of the 3 columns. So those columns are going to build until somebody takes that. And this is kind of the real fun in this game, the discard to draw system that they have. So you're going to be discarding cards to get more of them into your hand. So, for example, you discard 1 to draw 2 blind off of the deck. Once the deck does run out, it's game over. You count up the points, and whoever has most points wins. Also, if you take all the quests and the honors, that does end the game. In addition to that, you can also discard 1 to take an entire discard column if the card you discard matches the suit at the top of the column. So basically, you discard 1 card to one column, and then you can take either one of the other 2, which makes for some very, very interesting decisions. And this is, again, kind of where the real fun of the game comes in. Discarding really almost always feels painful. There's a couple of opportunities I had that I didn't really care about what I was discarding, but most of the time you're kind of giving your opponent an opportunity to get a card that they didn't have access to, which makes each move just feel important. It makes everything feel kind of weighty. And you're really trying to strike a balance between improving your tableau and then holding on to cards so your opponent can't really achieve certain honors, which are your face-up achievements, and kind of build their tableau up to that higher level. And building sets in your hand is great. This is another discard ability that if you discard those sets, you can grab these quest cards for additional points, but it also makes them available, especially if it's a juicy set, if it's not like 1, 1, and 2 or whatever. If it's something like 3, 4, and 5, and your opponent's already played the 2, it's a really nice set for them to take. Or, at least, start to take and grab a couple of those cards, depending on, what they decide to do. So I found that very interesting. The clans were also interesting. You can only get 1 and only 1. You can't swap it for the rest of the game. And there were some great powers. Some of them did feel a little bit underwhelming unless you were in the right situation. So we kind of had to make the choice to skip over some and then pick the other ones up. So it was interesting what we started to work towards. The way that I was kind of playing was you had a certain clan that you thought might work well. And then you had the clan that you really wanted, like the one that you really thought was gonna get you the most points. And you were kind of going back and forth between the two in a way, and trying to figure out exactly how you're going to play your cards to make sure that you got that clan that you really wanted. Because you could always pass over it and then come back to it if the one that you really wanted already got taken, or you just really needed that power. So kind of picking those up at the right time and utilizing their powers at the right time could really swing the game quite a bit, and I found that interesting. This game can suffer from luck of the draw a bit, especially if you're chasing certain sets and your card's on the bottom. You do have to do a little bit of adaptation to that, and it can feel a little bit of a bummer if you're really trying to get that card on the bottom. But I also think that I didn't mind it that much because of the short length of this game. It does, really fit that 30 to 45 minute time frame, if not less. So you can always play another round if you're really bummed out about it and you say, oh, well, I got a bad, luck of the draw on this. Let's play another round. The 2-player version was definitely my preference to play at. You took out a suit. And then you played with a smaller group of your honor and quest cards. I really found that was very tight. It was very mind gamey. You were trying to figure out what your opponent had, that could really benefit you the most. You're trying to really optimize your card play, and it felt to me like that's really where this sung. Our scores between Olivia and I in the 2-player version were only off by 1 point, and I love that. I absolutely love that. And in addition, the art was fantastic. These weird anthropomorphic, like beefy animals just kind of coming to life on these clan cards were really well drawn. The influence cards that you were playing had these beautiful backgrounds on them and that. So I really enjoyed the graphic design too. And finally, the color vision was great. Really good color vision accommodations. Everything was symbol and color based. So you would basically point to a symbol and you would say, for example, if you had a spy card, which let you get a specific card, you could point to the symbol if you're playing with anybody that was colorblind instead of just saying like red 2. So I really thought that was very well done. So my final thoughts as a fan of small box games, I know the description said this, but I do feel like this game does give me a nice size game experience for the size of the box and the price point. Basically, from what I was seeing, it was running right around $20, and I think that is more than fair for this game. If you're a fan of those really tough decisions in a small package, you want to make those tough decisions. You want to make, try to optimize what you're doing and like lose the least. That this really might be one for you to check out. It really hit for us in our sweet spot. Justin got a limited play of it, but he is kind of my bellwether for is it just me, or is, this game really good at kind of fitting that niche of making those tough decisions? And he really enjoyed it as well. So, if you fit into that category, I think this is definitely going to be one for you to check out. Also, fans of small box games in general, definitely check this one out. It is staying in my collection. That was Inheritors. And the other game that I did want to talk about today was Isla. This is 2 to 4 players in 30 to 60 minutes, designed by Stefan Feld. The art is by Alexander Jung and published by Isla and Ravensburger. Ready to start exploring a previously uncharted island? Good. You and the other players each have a team of 5 scientists, and you want to capture animal species so that you can study them, and of course, score points. The game board in La Isla consists of a set of oddly shaped tiles that are placed in a circular arrangement around a central polygonal tile, and they are extremely weird. As a side note, really, really weird shapes. 35 animal tokens, 7 of each of the 5 types, are placed at random on spaces numbered 2, 3, and 4 on the game board. These numbers equal the amount of camps that need to surround these spaces. On a turn, a player has 3 cards that they place face down in the A, B, and D spaces on their card display. All players reveal their A cards at the same time, then place them in one of 3 slots at the top of the display. The image depicted on the top of this card shows a special power that the owner of this card has available. Once a player has filled all 3 slots on their display, future cards placed with the A action cover an existing card. After revealing the cards in their B slots simultaneously, the players collect the goods depicted in the lower left corner of their individual card. Each player in turn then places one of their scientists on a camp, first paying 2 resources of the type matching that camp. If all players' scientists are on the board, they move one of these scientists. If the player now has a scientist on each camp surrounding an animal space, they take that animal tile, scoring points for it as noted on the board for 3 or 2 points. Finally, the card in the D slot increases the value of one animal. You and only you immediately score 1 point per animal of the type that you moved up on the scale. If you don't have an animal of that type, you don't get any points. Each animal has a points threshold, so if you move an animal up, say 4 times, each animal of this type is worth an extra point at the end of the game. The scale goes up to 5 so that each animal can be worth up to 5 points at the end of the game. When the sum of these values for all 5 animals equals 7, 9, or 11 based on the number of players, the game ends at the conclusion of the round. Players then tally their final scores to see who wins. Okay, so that was a lot, but this was essentially the teach of the game, and that was the description that was on BGG, so you're welcome. No need to go and read that anymore. I did buy this game at Half Price Books a long time ago. Since it was a Stefan Feld game, I generally enjoy his work, and I figured I might as well pick this one up and see what I think of it. So the first thing I do want to get out of the way, I am not a fan of this theme at all. Olivia and I discussed this, and, there's kind of some waffling back and forth. Well, you're just taking pictures of the animals, and then the description, it says, well, you're capturing the animals and you're, studying them and all of that. So it really isn't the greatest theme of all time. This was 2014. These themes were a lot more prevalent back then, but they still just don't sit right with me at all. Vienna is a re-implementation of this game with a new theme produced by Queen Games, which is about spies instead of capturing animals, which is maybe a slightly better theme, but it really isn't one that captures my interest. The board still looks a little bit bland to me, kind of in that Queen Games style where things are muted colors and the whole deal. So, I'll get in my thoughts about that at the end, but Olivia kind of mentioned the same thing, that, the theme didn't hit for her, and she's not really sure about the new Queen Games re-implementation of the game. I will say that the card play is really the most impressive aspect of this game, and I really did enjoy this. You've got those 3 cards that you are putting basically in this little folder that you hold. And then below that, you have slots for 3 different cards, and one is going to replace another card up in that folder. One is going to be the color of the cube that you draw for your resource, and then one is going to move that value up, and the 3 cards are kind of interacting with either the board or those actions that you're taking depending on doing certain things. So you have this 3-card bonus engine that is likely going to change from round to round. I mean, sometimes you'll get a card that is exactly the same as a card that you're holding, and that's great. If you really like your engine, you can just kind of keep that. But in general, that engine will be changing over and over and over and over again. This can, however, really lead to some really cool engines that are evolving, that changes to suit what you're looking to grab next. So as you're focusing on maybe a different animal that's really gone up in value, you start to put cards that talk about, kind of increasing that animal's value and things like that. It's really about building that engine and kind of manipulating it to suit what you're currently doing as much as you possibly can. There's a ton of cards in the deck, so you're not always going to be able to get exactly what you want. But out of the 3, you should be able to find, most of the time something that's going to work at least okay for you. And you can basically go off of 2 and then keep changing that 3rd one until you find something that you do like. And then it leads to your next tough decision of what to cover up. Especially late in the game, this can lead to some super tough decisions about what you really want to cover up. That said, I did like the simultaneous gameplay for the most part. The only time that you really had to take turns in order and really make decisions was if you were, you were putting your scientists out on the board and putting them into the little camps. You did have to do that in order, depending on what you were trying to get. Because you might get a certain animal before another player gets a certain animal. So you do have to do that in order. But everything else is kind of simultaneous. You're going, you're thinking, you're playing your cards, etc. So that did speed the game up considerably. That's why it's that lower time amount, on the upfront time estimate. And I did find that was pretty accurate. The rules were a little bit ambiguous about the placement of the player pieces. I felt like that could have been improved considerably, especially towards the middle of the board. As you got more towards the center, there were some, kind of lines that were vertical that were separating those two, but they were faint, so you weren't sure, like, are these two separate spaces? Can I, straddle these spaces? I don't know. So it was very confusing, and it wasn't very clear about that. So this really is a very tactical game. You're adapting to capture the most valuable animals, or you're making your placements most efficient that they can be, and then trying to push that animal up in the market as much as possible. You're basically adapting as much as possible. While still having somewhat of a strategy, probably for most of the game, if not all the game, on something, and then, just kind of changing your tactics up for, that other part of the game to try to get you more points. The last thing that I do want to talk about, and I talked about this on a great many Stefan Feld games, the color vision, not great. Especially regarding the cube color matching between the board, the cards, and the cubes themselves. Again, this was 2014. I get that. It was your standard. And I shouldn't say that this is kind of indicative of Feld games, but more Ravensburger, Isla productions. There's just a mismatch, between the board, the cards, and the cubes themselves. It really did, kind of throw me off a little bit. And I did have to sit there and look and think and try to figure out, okay, these are the cubes that I have. This is where they should be. I felt like this could be solved with some double coding and symbols, maybe on the cubes or, on the board itself. But would that really be worth it? And that's what I'll get into in my final thoughts. The player pawn colors, I will say, were fine. I didn't have any trouble with those, but really the cubes and the board matching were just not good, as well as the cards. So for my final thoughts, I'm reminded in this game of how I felt after playing Amsterdam. If you remember that review, I was in love with the central mechanic. In that game, it was the little rondelle that you spun around for your resources. But I was really underwhelmed with everything else. I would say I'd put this higher on my Feld's list than Amsterdam, which I should probably start putting together in writing anyways. But probably not any higher than anything else of his. The other games I've played of his are just better by a significant margin. It felt okay, but there were a lot of little lucky things, and it wasn't quite as... It wasn't quite as strategic as I would have liked, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And I think part of that is the theme. I think part of that is the rules ambiguity, but I really did like that central engine. So, while a retheme might be a step forward for the game. I'm not sure that I'd seek it out without a significant discount. And even at that, I would probably need to play it first to see how this remake A, changes the game, and then B, improves on a lot of the aspects of the graphical design and the theme. I don't know if it would be worth picking that up. So I think this game might be on its way out of my collection in the next major cull. I might get it played one more time before I do that, but with the amount of games I play, probably not. Which is a shame because, this is probably my first Feld. I'm not going to get rid of Amsterdam just because I paid so much for it, sadly. But this one definitely I picked up relatively cheap, and I think I'll probably be getting rid of it relatively cheap as well. So that was La Isla. So I think that's going to do it for us today. Since I will be doing multiple weekly episodes for the next couple of weeks, I think I'll call it at that. I'm going to do some shorter episodes and just try to get some more content and caught up with things. So you know what to do. Go to the website for more information, cardboardtime.com. Instagram and Twitter is at @cardboard_time. The Blue Sky is at cardboardtime. Our Discord on the Tabletop Express server, you can just email me for the invite, which is cardboardtime@gmail.com. That you can always email for any questions, suggestions, or ideas for discussion topics. And as always, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you around the table next week for another episode of Cardboard Time.